Today, I want to tell you guys a certain NBA player that's playing right now that absolutely deserves your respect. And before I tell you who that player is, I want to tell you guys to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share, and tell a friend, tell a family member, tell whoever to support my channel.
Big as the Super Bowl.
There is an NBA player that's playing right now that deserves your respect. And that player that I'm going to mention on this episode today is one Mr. Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics. That's right, Jaylen Brown, Atlanta's own Jaylen Brown. Or I should say Wheeler High School, which is all the way up in Cobb County, Jaylen Brown. But Jaylen Brown, that's the player I'm going to mention on this episode today. And he's having an unbelievable year. Jaylen Brown has been balling for the Boston Celtics. This dude this season is averaging 29 points a game, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and he's shooting 48% from the field and 35% from three, leading the Boston Celtics, who are currently 39-20, and they currently have the second best record in the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics. Who could have seen this coming? Unbelievable season that the Boston Celtics are having. I mean, before the season started, nobody could have predicted that the Boston Celtics would be the second best team in the Eastern Conference record-wise. Nobody. Not even me. Like, I thought the Boston Celtics was going to... I thought this season for the Celtics was going to be a quote-unquote bridge year, transition year. And I thought the Boston Celtics was going to be a lottery team. I admit it. I didn't think the Boston Celtics were going to be a playoff team in the Eastern Conference, even with this watered-down Eastern Conference. I thought this was going to be a transition year. And as it turned out, I was wrong. I got to admit it. I got to take the L on the Boston Celtics this season. I was dead wrong about this team. Joe Mazzulla has done a hell of a job with getting this Boston Celtics team to play up to their capability. They're defending at a high level. Offense, they're second in the NBA in offensive rating. I mean, are you kidding me? These Boston Celtics are the second best offense in the NBA right now. I mean, it's unbelievable. They're taking a bunch of threes. They're playing fast. And it's all led by Jaylen Brown, who's their number one option. I mean, they're getting Derek White. Derek White hasn't had the best shooting season, but he just impacts winning, is what the nerds always say. Like he's always tops in these advanced statistics. You know, he defensively, real plus minus, all of it. Defensively, he's might be the best guard defender in the league. I mean, the guy just does everything defensively on and off the ball. He bleeds all guards and block shots. And so he does a lot of little things. Emas Keita, their center, he's been good. Peyton Pritchard, who against the Lakers a few days ago had a 30-plus point game. He's been playing well. They're getting good play out of Wada Baker and Hugo Gonzalez and Garza. They're big men. They're just getting a bunch of contributions from a bunch of guys that I'm sure most basketball fans haven't even heard of on their team. And they're just all playing well. They know their roles. And they traded for Nikola Vucevic from the Chicago Bulls. And he's playing well, right? He's been fitting in pretty well for their team. And it's all led by Jaylen Brown, who's their number one scoring option. And to me, you gotta give Jaylen Brown his love for what he's done with these Celtics, because, when he was drafted in 2016, third overall, and he didn't really play as much, as his first year with the Celtics, because at that time, he was playing with Isaiah Thomas and Al Horford and Terry Rozier and Jay Crowder, Avery Bradley. He was playing with those guys. And so he wasn't playing as much. But then his second year, which was also another year that the Boston Celtics ended up getting a top pick from the Brooklyn Nets because of that Kevin Garnett trade many years ago. And so they get Jayson Tatum. And Jaylen Brown, for most of his Boston career, has basically been playing in the shadows of Jayson Tatum. Because Jayson Tatum was the higher rated prospect. He was the most polished player. And Jayson Tatum has kind of been, for most of Jaylen Brown's tenure, he's been the de facto number one option. And so because of that, Jaylen Brown's had to play beside him. He's kind of had to be their quote-unquote Robin. And I think over the years, because of that, Jaylen Brown has never gotten his just due as a player. Never. Despite the fact that Jaylen Brown has also been a heavy contributor to Boston's playoff success over the past near decade. And considering the fact that Jaylen Brown was the guy who won NBA Finals MVP just a couple of years ago in 2024. Jaylen Brown was the guy that won MVP, Finals MVP. And so it just feels like despite all that, and he's made a bunch of all-star teams, he's made a couple of all-NBA teams, and it just feels like Jaylen Brown has never gotten his just due. And I think this season for Jaylen Brown, with the season that he's having, like I said, 29 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists on very good efficiency. It feels like this is the year for Jaylen Brown for people to recognize that, hey man, yeah, I've been playing with Jayson Tatum, but guess what? If you want me to shoulder the load, carry the mantle, be the number one scoring option on a very good team, I can do that too. And Jaylen Brown has done that for these Boston Celtics. He's the number one scoring option on the team that's 39-20, and they have the second best record in the Eastern Conference. That's what Jaylen Brown is doing. And deservedly, he was an all-star starter in the all-star game, and it was well-deserved. And he should be a candidate for first-team All-NBA. And dare I say, he should be a candidate for MVP. Yeah. He absolutely should be. He should be a candidate. Now, I'm not going to say that Jaylen Brown should be the leading candidate for MVP because there's a lot of really good candidates right now. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is Victor Wembanyama, who's doing his thing for the San Antonio Spurs. Cade Cunningham he's the number one option on the best team in the Eastern Conference. And so you can't dismiss him. Nikola Jokic, I know he's been injured and he just came back, but you still got him. And there's some Jaylen Brown, to me, should be in that conversation with all those guys when you consider the expectations that the Boston Celtics had coming into the season and where they are right now. They're 39-20, and Jaylen Brown's averaging 29 a game. And so, to me, and when I look at Jaylen Brown, man, as a basketball player, I've always been a fan. I've always been a Jaylen Brown fan. As an Atlanta Hawks fan, I've been fantasizing for a minute at the idea of this guy being on my team. Now I think those moments are starting to fade away a little bit, but I've been dreaming of the idea of having Jaylen Brown on playing for this hometown Atlanta Hawks. That's been at the thought of my mind, and over the last few years. And so I've been a Jaylen Brown fan for the longest, and it's good to see him show out for the Boston Celtics. And look, man, this guy's one of the best shot making wings in the league, man. This dude makes shots at an elite level. He's an elite mid-range shooter. His 3-point percentage has kind of been down a little bit, but he's a capable 3-point shooter. And we all know with Jaylen Brown, he can get to the rim. He gets to the rim with force. You get him, if you put a smaller defender on him, he's gonna bully ball him and bang him and score over him with ease, right? And so we all know he can get to the rim, but his mid-range shooting is elite. He's one of the best mid-range shooters in the game right now when you look at Jaylen Brown. And so this dude is making mid-range shots. His passing has gotten better over the years. That was a weakness earlier in his career. So his playmaking has been a little better over the past few years. And this dude is he's just a warrior, man. He's a competitor. Jaylen Brown, when you look at the culture that the Boston Celtics have represented over the past decade or so, Jaylen Brown emphasizes that. He bleeds green in how and the passion that he plays with out there on the basketball court. Jaylen Brown represents that, and he's done it throughout his entire tenure. And he's definitely showcased that this season when you look at the load that he's had to carry for the Boston Celtics. This dude right here, Jaylen Brown's a bad man. and he shows up in big games. He's done it over the course of his career. And so I want to give my love to Jaylen Brown, man, for what he's been able to do to these Boston Celtics. I mean, the Boston Celtics are 39-20. They have the second best record in the Eastern Conference. They have a better record than the Knicks. They have a better record than the Cavs. I mean, what else is there to say, man? I mean, the Boston Celtics are they're legit. They've been a legit good team, man. You know, who knows, man? Jayson Tatum might come back. You know, look, we can debate as far as whether or not Jayson Tatum should come back, considering he's been off an Achilles. You know, seems a little risky to me, but we'll see. You know, we'll see what happens. The reports are saying that he's playing 4-on-4 basketball. And so we'll see what happens on that front. But, you know, and look, if Jayson Tatum comes back, then, you know, and he looks close to the guy he's been, then the Boston Celtics just become even more scarier, you know, as a playoff threat. But even without Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown has shown the world that, like, look, man, I'm that dude. I'm one of the top 15 players, and I'm one of the top 10 to 15 players in the league. And as a guy that supports all Atlanta ballers and hoopers, I'm very happy to see how Jaylen Brown has been playing this season. I can't even be more happy and more proud to see what Jaylen Brown has done, because he's one of the best players in the league, and this season he has showcased that and then some. Make no mistake about it. And so, you know, the Boston Celtics, they're doing their thing. They're doing their thing, and it's led by Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics. And I think it's about time that the basketball universe gives this man the respect that he deserves, because Jaylen Brown has earned it and then some.